Hello and welcome to WOLV Overtime. Alex Prasad, Adam Brewster for the, he's working overtime today, pulling a full shift here.
Oh, yeah.
Full 30-minute shift. And
oh, my goodness.
Peter Saul as well.
I live here.
You live here, right? You live here. That's nothing
episode.
new.
Snowpocalypse will not stop this.
Right, Snowpro Winfrey can't stop us. So is this the post-irrational exuberance episode, Peter?
I'd say so. The 9 out of 10 game-winning streak or
Right.
game-winning era is over.
Era. It was a short era.
Losing to the bottom of the basement C-Stage team, not a great sign, obviously.
Right.
Only 2 losses in their past 11 games, though, to this Michigan State team. And maybe you can attribute that to the fact that it is a rivalry, and this is the only way for Michigan State at this point to really salvage their season, barring a miracle CCHA tournament run.
Perhaps not unlike the Michigan basketball team playing Michigan State this past weekend. There you go, cross-sports analogy in the first minute of the show. All right, well, let's take a look at what happened on Saturday night at beautiful Joe Louis Arena. And right off the bat, it's a very disorganized game, but Michigan State with a shot from the point. Hunwick scrambles back to get into position and does just barely.
Yeah, that was Hunwick all night long. Lucky or good, who knows, but he somehow manages to keep this puck out of the net.
And just 30 seconds later, Michigan is going to come back with a chance of their own. Here it is right here. Luke Glendenning trailing behind his 2 other attackers. Wolberg gives it to him. Adam Glendenning sneaks behind. The Michigan State defense collapses right there. And then Glendenning steps into the slot.
Collapse on Wolberg, have to go Mark Caparuso, and Glendenning has a great opportunity from the shot, put it right into the pads of Yannick, though.
All right, well, moving on to the second period. Here, Michigan breaking out of their own zone with another odd man rush. Right here, Louis Caparuso finds Glendenning. I think we're going to talk about him more later, but Yannick with a big save. It'd be a goaltender's duel all night long. Later in the second, a Michigan turnover, odd man rush for Michigan State, but Sean Hunwick, great kick save right there on the rebound as well, keeping Michigan in this game. But then a Michigan State power play, Hunwick again. He's just never in position. It's just so scary. Michigan State outnumbers Michigan down low right here, and they're going to find the back of the net, Peter.
Yeah, that was a bad clear there by Michigan. A little sloppiness down low. We've seen that happen way too often this season.
And Hunwick's legs just a little bit too short right there is really what it comes down to. Michigan, though, just a couple seconds later, coming back with a chance of their own. Louis Caparuso puts it behind Yannick right there. Just a great move in the box right there. So at the end of 2 periods, it was Michigan 1, Michigan State 1, but just a really, really sloppy game. And in the third period, well, here's another look too. It's really a move in a phone booth right there for Louis Caparuso. But moving on to the third period, it was a decisive period, and Michigan State just took over. Here, just 7 minutes left in the game, a shot blocked, but Joey Sheen cleans up that mess and puts Michigan State up by 1. And you can't really blame this one on Hunwick, Adam.
No, you really can't. I mean, he kind of came out to cut off the angle, doing the smart thing. Took a bad bounce. Nice job there putting away the rebound by Sheen.
And just a minute later, Michigan State looking to build on the lead. There's Dustin Gaisley with a centering pass right there, and Sean Hunwick, perhaps his best save of the night, single-handedly keeping the Wolverines in this game. A couple minutes later, 4-on-4 action. Kevin Lynch taken down. The puck does go into the net, but into the goal, well after the net is knocked off. Peterman, break this one down for us.
Yeah, great heads-up play here by Kevin Lynch. He's reads the play so well on the blue line, breaks up the pass right there, and he's away. And obviously, he gets taken down. It's a clear penalty shot called.
And Adam, it was perhaps the least imaginative penalty shot I have ever seen. There's a concrete hands reference somewhere in here.
Right into the pad of Yannick. Bill Clement, hands of cement. That's what we're looking for right there. But really, no creativity from Lynch. I mean, that was the opportunity to tie the game.
And one last chance for Michigan here from the point. Chad Langlis hits the left post right there. I thought it went in for sure, but that's all the chances Michigan got in that game, dropping the game 2-1 to Michigan State. They did outshoot Michigan State, and let's take a look at the box score right now. By 5 shots, 35-30 was that total shots on goal comparison right there. Jake Chelios gets his 5th of the year, assisted by his brother, Dean, of course, both sons of Chris Chelios, is he a Red Wings great? Is he a Blackhawks great?
He's an Atlanta Thrashers great.
An Atlanta Thrashers great. Or a Chicago, he played on the Chicago team that wasn't the Blackhawks.
Chicago Wolves.
The
Wolves, yeah. So Wolves great. We'll settle for that. And of course, also of note, Carl Hagel's point streak ends at 9 games. So not the best game for Michigan for sure. Peter, let's start with the offense's seeming complete disorganization, especially in the first period and a half.
Yeah, Alex, I would definitely say that was true. It just seemed that there was no cohesive coaching, no cohesive game plan. They were switching it up. Different lines were doing different things. Different players in the same lines seem to be having different goals, whether it's the running gun, the dump and chase. There didn't seem to be overall, a game schematic in place there against Michigan State.
Right. The offensive strategy seemed to be, once you get out there, decide what you want to do. If you want to dump and chase, if you want to try to carry it into the zone.
You need some sort of consistency, and that's how you break Yannickev. He's been able to beat Michigan twice this season, played significantly better than Paul Masano did in both of his games against Michigan. And, you could say he really made the difference. He stood on his head. He's a bigger body than Paul Masano is, and just stood up, really, when it came down to it.
Well, speaking of Yannickev, he's won 2 now against Michigan, Peter. Should we be worried about that, or are these just two? Just ended up having to be 2 games and whatever.
Well, I'm just happy that Ryan Miller is gone and Jeff Flurry is gone. Those were 2 Michigan-killing Michigan State goalies. Yannickev, a great performance for him. He hasn't had the best season as much as State hasn't had the best season, but he was certainly big in between the pipes for Michigan State.
Right. Paul Mazzano not playing this game. The nod went to Yannickev, and he stood tall, 34 saves on 35 shots.
Yeah, he had a lot of help from his defense. Of course, Torrey Krug, one of the better defenders in the CCHA, if not in the country. Right. But at the same time, he had to face those couple tough shots from Glendenning early on in the game, and then a fire from Langlis from the point at the end, and even had to stop a shot, which is no easy task, although Kevin Lynch didn't make it
right.
very difficult for him.
Right.
Michigan has scored a penalty shot since October 2004, if you can believe that.
Wow. It was also, they hadn't played an overtime game till last year against Alaska ever, or had been in a shootout, I think it was the stat, so some weird things going on there. Finally, one thing of note in this game that didn't show up on the ice, but on the bench at least, Brian Hogan making his first appearance in uniform, Adam, in a while. Goalie controversy? The team's been playing pretty well, and Hunwick's been playing extremely well.
I think when Hunwick came in for Hogan and when Hogan went down, you would have said when Hogan comes back that there would be a controversy. But I think at this point there's not. Hunwick has proven that he's the guy. He's the #1 goalie in CCHA play in terms of save percentage, and he's moved his save percentage up to .923, which is just as good as Hogan's was. And in Hogan's absence, the team has really rallied around Hunwick much in the manner that they did last year.
You're going to make it interesting, Peter, aren't you? Go ahead.
Well, I agree with Adam. We have to stick with Hunwick for now. That is obviously the great decision. But going on, if Hunwick starts to falter a bit, Red has to be ready to put Brian Hogan right away. Because we've seen in the past, Hogan can carry this team just as well as Hunwick has. So if Hunwick stops working, you can't be afraid to change back to Hogan at a weekend's notice.
I think the thing for me is just I would love to see Brian Hogan, who I think is a better goaltender than Sean Hunwick, just because he's bigger. Absolutely. That might be they might be the same goaltender, but we saw in the Michigan State's game-winning goal, his legs aren't long enough.
Well, he gives up a lot of rebounds, and it puts him out of position.
Right, and it's tougher for him to get back into position because he's so short.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, he seems to just get in front of the puck. He's not a technically sound goalie. That's a fact. But he still has managed to stop the pucks. But you wonder if that's going to stop suddenly. And suddenly his great save percentage isn't down the tubes.
Right, and I guess what I was going to say is I would like to see Brian Hogan with a team playing with a sense of urgency that we saw at the end of last year, where you do have a very talented, regularly sized goaltender, and a team playing in front of him that has urgency, because you haven't seen that. It's the same complacent Michigan, at least the past couple games. I think we were fooled last weekend. Let's move on, though. Probably the biggest news in the CCHA this past week was Rick Comley, Michigan State's head coach, announced his retirement. One of only 3 coaches to have over 700 career wins. 1 national title is an NAIA national title at Lake Superior State, at Northern Michigan, and then coming down south here at Michigan State. He's the only coach to win NCAA titles at 2 different schools.
He's a Yooper through and through. You talk about great hockey careers. Rick Comley certainly had one playing at Lake Superior State and Sault Ste. Marie. As you mentioned, going on to Northern Michigan and Marquette, 2 Upper Peninsula schools. He's just had a long, hard hockey life in Michigan. It's cold, it's ugly, but he's coached and seen a lot of great things.
It's a cold, ugly hockey life.
Yeah, but you know what? He was a great, technically sound hockey coach. His teams played real tight, really checking high possessive games, and that's just good hockey.
And he stepped into a tough situation at Michigan State, taking over for the legendary Ron Mason, who another one of those 700-plus win guys. Yeah. Him, Red, and Comley are the only 3 that have done it. And that's a tough shoes to fill. He actually did it as well at Northern Michigan, so that was kind of interesting. But a rocky road at Michigan State, and I guess Adam perhaps tarnished as well.
I would say, and at least coming from a Michigan fan's perspective, you got to say good riddance to Rick Comley. He's not a great guy. This was, put into position a few years ago when Corey Trapp nearly killed Steve Kampfer and then was back a season later. But, it's something, the guy won a lot of games, but did he do it in the most calm and clean manner? No, and so I think that really tarnishes his reputation.
I gotta go with the cross-sport analogy here. Nick Saban, is he going to be a Hall of Fame college football coach? Definitely. Yeah. Has he been a slime ball? Has he over-recruited? Has he done some, unsavory things? Yes. That's just the world we live in. No. Moving on, let's move back to, good, hard-nosed hockey. Let's go to working overtime. Let's talk about who's working overtime this week. I make the graphics here. Did anyone really work overtime this week? I don't know. I'm going with Red Berenson, though. Why? Not because he's perhaps the coach of the annually most disappointing team at Michigan, because he outlasted Rick Comley, so he's definitely working overtime. But Peter, you go with Sean Hunwick. Pretty self-explanatory.
Maybe better lucky than good for Sean Hunwick, but still, numbers don't lie. 2 saves on 35 shots against on Saturday. Highest in-conference save percentage, 941%. Unbelievable.
You really enunciated that 941. And Adam, you go with Glendenning. He was in on a lot of the scoring opportunities that Michigan had.
He had 2 good scoring opportunities early on, but I think his most important play came in the second period, where Michigan State had a great chance at a rebound, but Glendenning, working off the back check, lifted up the Michigan State player's stick. No chance there for Michigan State. And so I think he worked really hard despite his -1 for the night.
I guess I would just play devil's advocate. Yeah, -1, and then, good try, kid, but put him in the back of the net, and then maybe you really get working overtime. But the defensive aspect of Luke Glendenning, especially 2 years ago, Peter, on that penalty kill, the epic penalty kills, him and Tim Miller. Yeah. Definitely a tough kid that has definitely been working hard. Well, we need to go to commercial break. Coming back on the other side, we'll take a look at the new first-place CCHA team. I have a feeling you probably don't like them.
And your mother was begging Barack to stop.
Hey guys, how's it going? Are you ready for the show?
Of course I am, you knucklehead. Who do you think I am? I'm Sir Charles Barkley.
I don't know. Look at yourself before you pass judgment. Okay.
David, I was promised 8 pounds of turkey in exchange for appearing on Varsity Blue. Where is my turkey? That is my question.
But have you guys even thought about if Richard should get fired or not this year?
What are you saying? Is it true? Sure. Indeed. Yes. 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 I mean it this time.
No, David, I will not answer your question until you give me the turkey that I was promised in exchange for appearing on the show. I cannot think until I get my turkey. We are
Varsity
Blues.
If I had one word to describe Varsity Blue, it would definitely not be terrible, you knucklehead. Alexander Prasad.
Welcome back to WOLV Overtime. Alex Prasad, Adam Brewster, Peter Saul.
Alexander Prasad.
That is correct. Of course, a spoof of the Alexander Ovechkin, Charles Barkley thing there.
That's mentioned deep into the vault, that reference.
Yeah,
you gotta go look that video up to really
It is. It's true. Well, let's take a look at the CCHA standings this week, guys. Michigan slips out of that number 1 spot to number 2. Notre Dame now in first with 44 points. Michigan, of course, getting 0 points this past weekend with their loss to Michigan State. Also, Miami, Western Michigan, Alaska, Ferris rounding out the top 6. Western Michigan having a very good season this year for the Broncos anyhow.